My fiancée told me she required a no-communication pause to rediscover her identity. I responded, take as much time as you want. Then I sent her possessions to her folks' place. Her frantic, I'm prepared to return message arrived the following day. I, a 31-year-old guy, am, or I suppose was, betrothed to Lauren, 29. We'd been a couple for 6 years, sharing a home for 4 in the condo I purchased prior to knowing her. Our marriage was set for 5 months ahead. I truly thought we were content. Last Wednesday, she had me sit on our couch, the one we dedicated an entire weekend to selecting, arguing over velvet compared to textured material. She wore an expression I'd never witnessed, not fury, not sorrow, but a sort of aloof gravity. Kyle, she started. Her eyes locked on a point on the wall slightly above my shoulder. I have to be truthful about my path at the moment. My gut clenched. The term path mentioned beyond trips is seldom positive. What sort of path, Lauren? I feel somewhat adrift, she explained, her tone a precisely controlled display of genuineness. I care for you naturally, but in constructing our shared existence, I believe I've disconnected from who Lauren is apart from our duo. I require distance, a genuine no-contact interval to rediscover myself. I simply gazed, my thoughts stalling. It seemed like she was reciting from a poor personal growth manual. A no-contact interval? What does that entail? Will you stay with Kelly for a couple of days? She shook her head, a hint of frustration in her gaze. No, Kyle, I need an authentic separation from our partnership, from this condo, from our habits. I must be entirely independent. No messages, no conversations. It's the sole method for me to determine my individual direction. I've browsed online sufficiently. I recognize the pattern. I need to rediscover myself is frequently code for I've already encountered another person and wish to try it out without repercussions. My initial reaction was a scorching, overwhelming surge of rage. I desired to shout, to insist on the facts, to question if the past 6 years were utterly meaningless to her. But my voice failed me. I couldn't utter a word. I envisioned the road forward, the arguments, the begging, the gradual, torturous demise of our bond over weeks or months. And in that instant of powerless quiet, an alternative idea formed, a chilly, serene, and profoundly sensible one. She was requesting a conclusion. She was merely cloaking it in counseling jargon to relieve her own remorse. I drew a deliberate, uneven inhale. When I eventually spoke, my tone was disturbingly steady. All right. She blinked, obviously startled. All right? Yes. All right. Your path matters. You ought to take whatever duration you require. I comprehend. The ease that spread across her features was nauseating. She anticipated a confrontation, a dispute. I provided her a simple departure. Oh, Kyle. Thank you. I knew you were grown up enough to grasp this. I'll simply gather a suitcase for the night. No, I stated, my voice remaining soft, but with a fresh sharpness. If you want a fresh start, you want a fresh start. No partial efforts, no backups. I rose, the action seeming oddly remote, as if I were observing another individual. Take whatever time you need, Lauren. I'll handle all matters here. She departed an hour afterward with a modest travel bag, offering me a brief, emotionless peck on the cheek. She claimed this would strengthen us ultimately. I merely nodded, the falsehood lingering between us. The door latched closed, and the quiet of the condo enveloped me heavily. I remained still for an hour. I just stayed there on my section of the couch, gazing at the imprint she'd created. The fury I'd held back before returned, pursued by a surge of mourning so deep it seemed like I was submerging. This was the end. It was truly finished. I didn't rest that evening. The subsequent morning, powered by caffeine and an emptied sensation in my torso, I realized what needed to be done. I couldn't reside in a shrine to our partnership, anticipating her to perhaps, conceivably, conclude I was her desire. Her plea for a pause was the termination. My agreement was the burial. I commenced packing. It wasn't a detached, mechanical procedure. It was harsh. Each item I handled was a recollection. The unattractive pottery cup I acquired for her during our initial vacation. Her assortment of exercise pads. The outrageously costly beauty routine that occupied the whole bathroom surface. I boxed everything, my sorrow gradually solidifying into a stark determination. This was an essential removal. By mid-afternoon, my living area was packed with containers. I contacted a professional relocation company, not an urgent task, just a standard one. They arranged a collection for the next day. While awaiting, I began the online cleanup. removed her details from the service accounts she was meant to oversee. I visited our marriage location site. The $2,500 initial payment was non-returnable. I looked at the figure, a tangible amount for our collapse tomorrow. It stung. With a profound exhale, I completed the termination form and dispatched it online. The following day, once the relocators had removed all 17 packages, directed to her parents' residence 3 states distant, I stood in the resident area of my personal dwelling. I felt vacant, not victorious, merely drained. That afternoon, my device vibrated. It was Lauren. The message: "I've had a moment to reflect. It was an error. I'm set to return now. I long for you." I anticipated the sensation of alleviation. It didn't arrive. Rather, I simply felt weary. I messaged in response: "I don't believe that's wise. Your items are en route to your parents' home. They ought to arrive by week's end. I wish you discovered what you sought." Her phone attempt came 3 seconds afterward. I allowed it to reach voicemail. The onslaught had started. Update 1. It's been an extended week. Appreciate the notes of encouragement. It's odd how affirming it is to have outsiders verify you're not crazy. My device has been a battlefield. Following her original 27 unanswered rings, Lauren's messages turned into an expert lesson in sentimental turbulence. "Lauren, what do you mean you dispatched my items? Kyle, contact me. This isn't amusing. You forwarded my belongings to my parents? Are you for real? You can't do that." It was a pause, Kyle. A pause. "To improve myself for our sake." Aired. I was frightened and I botched it. "Please, I adore you. Let's simply discuss this. I'll do whatever." Then arrived the message from her closest companion, Kelly. Not shouting, but something much more sly. "Hey Kyle, Lauren is utterly devastated. I think you truly exaggerated. You know she cares for you." She was merely perplexed. "You must be the more mature one and permit her to return me." She desired a no-contact pause. "I'm providing it to her. Don't be harsh. She didn't intend it that way and you realize it. She merits some leniency. Don't discard 6 years because you're upset." The manipulation was remarkable. The actual difficulty began on Tuesday. I got an email from Martha, the organizer at our marriage site. It wasn't the straightforward approval I anticipated. "Dear Kyle, I am contacting you about your termination request for event. Redacted. I need to notify you that we got a call from Ms. Lauren yesterday. She indicated that your termination request was submitted mistakenly during a time of individual turmoil and that she, as the joint signer on the agreement, does not agree to the termination. Additionally, she has asked that if the event slot is to be freed, the $2,500 initial payment be retained as a credit under her name for a later reservation. Since there is a disagreement between the signing parties, we cannot continue with the termination or provide any refunds or credits until we obtain a certified mutual declaration or a court order. The money is presently held." My pulse quickened with dread. This wasn't merely a clumsy grab. This was cleverer. She wasn't attempting to take the funds directly. She was aiming to ensnare it in administrative deadlock. She knew I disliked disputes and was wagering I'd prefer to let her keep the cash than manage the trouble. It was a strategic action. I phoned Martha, who was courteous but resolute. She clarified that she was restricted. Both our signatures were on the original agreement, despite me funding all. She couldn't proceed on my statement alone when her joint signer was actively challenging it. The vision of a tidy separation disappeared. This was going to become complicated. To worsen things, I received a call from Lauren's mom, Judith. I anticipated her to be furious, but her tone was simply strained. "Kyle, Walter and I are present. We just talked to Lauren. She mentioned you ejected her without notice. What in the world is happening?" She wasn't screaming, but the protective manner was evident. She was shielding her child. This wasn't going to be a simple dialogue. Update 2. All right, matters have intensified. Seems like I'm in a cheap courtroom show. That conversation with Lauren's parents was exhausting. I didn't counter Judith's protectiveness with wrath. I just serenely and mournfully presented the details. I described precisely what Lauren stated, her "I need to rediscover myself" monologue. Then I informed them about her contact to the marriage site, attempting to secure the $2,500 initial payment. There was an extended pause on the line. Then I overheard her dad, Walter, exhale deeply from afar. "Judith?" he uttered. "Inquire if this involves a guy named Zachary." My heart pounded. "Who's Zachary?" I questioned, feigning ignorance. Judith's voice was tight when she responded. "Kyle, we're apologetic. We weren't aware of the full scope." She has a pattern of rash choices. We simply wished she had matured beyond it. It wasn't the instant complete backing from the initial tale. It was the hesitant, fatigued admission of parents who have witnessed this spectacle previously. They didn't propose to resolve it. They merely sounded beaten. A week afterward, I got a bulky package via mail. No official delivery, just an ordinary one. Within was a printed note from Lauren and a pile of duplicated invoices. She had elevated her tactics. There was no mention of sentimental effort. It was an elaborate, 4-page paper seeking compensation for her portion of our shared living. She enclosed duplicates of invoices for a bookcase, an office seat, assorted cooking tools, and a statement for a tooth treatment from 2 years prior. She asserted she had paid for many home costs in currency and was seeking repayment. Her overall request was a startlingly exact $9,475. It was an invention, but a thoroughly recorded one. She was constructing an argument, aiming to overwhelm me with documents. The underhanded maneuvers persisted. The photographer contacted me not to request funds, but to alert me. Lauren had phoned him, informed him the marriage was canceled, and inquired if he could draft a loss declaration for her, stating she had settled the $1,000 initial payment completely, so she could recover it via an insurance plan she never possessed. He was a decent fellow and sensed it was suspicious, so he wanted to inform me. She wasn't only fabricating to obtain money. She was attempting to enlist others to fabricate for her. This was the ultimate trigger. My morning had vanished long ago, substituted by a frosty, firm determination. She desired to engage in document games? All right, I thrive on data tables professionally. The retaliation. I didn't merely create one data table. I produced an entire slideshow deck. Slide 1. Overview: a concise, courteous dismissal of her request. Slide 2. Examination of Lauren's assertions. I reviewed her invoices individually. The bookcase: I matched my bank record from that period, displaying the fee on my profile. The office seat: I located the email purchase verification under my name. The tooth treatment: I included a duplicate of the coverage report, indicating my plan had paid for 80% of it. Slide 3. Kyle's verified damages. This was my rendition of her request. The $2,500 site initial payment held but my deficit. The $1,000 photographer charge vanished. The expense of transporting her belongings across 3 states, $785. The concluding service statement she'd abandoned to me, $180. My overall verified damages directly from her behavior, $4,465. Slide 4. The route ahead. I presented 2 choices. Choice A. She endorses a certified declaration consenting to the termination of the marriage site agreement and relinquishes any right to the initial payment. In exchange, I will cover my $4,465 deficit and we part ways, never communicating again. Choice B. She declines and I employ the precise records I was showing to sue her in minor disputes court to reclaim my deficits. I transformed the deck into a document file. I named it Monetary Settlement. I composed a very brief, courteous email, attached the file, and dispatched it to Lauren. And once more, I included Walter and Judith in the recipients. Not from spite, but since they were now involved in this chaos, like it or not. I didn't receive a reply for 4 days. The quiet was unsettling. Final update. It's concluded. I believe it's at last genuinely concluded. The closure wasn't an abrupt blast, but a gradual, chaotic fade. I never encountered Zachary. I never obtained a straightforward response from Lauren to my email. The details filtered through from the single shared acquaintance, Harold, that I still converse with. He learned the account from a highly chatty, very regretful Kelly, who was attempting to regain favor in the social circle. Evidently, my monetary settlement document triggered a collapse of massive scale. Her parents, confronted with indisputable recorded evidence of her deceptions, finally asserted authority. The discussion wasn't one showdown, but a week-long conflict. They showed her the evidence. She attempted to refute them, but the invoices and reports were undeniable. They severed her support, not merely her plastic card, but the entire backup system. Zachary, the way-of-life business owner, did not respond with a fitting justice address. His response was much more typical and pitiful. Once he understood Lauren's family aid was eliminated and she arrived with substantial obligations, which her parents notified her she now must manage, he merely drifted off. The messages grew less common. He was abruptly always occupied in sessions. Roughly 2 weeks after she was economically disconnected, She returned to their least small apartment to discover his items absent and a message on the surface that read, "Sorry. The vibe here isn't suitable for me now." He restricted her on all platforms. No spectacle. Just a silent, timid departure. Lauren is currently residing with her parents. Not merely in the storage area, but in her former adolescent sleeping quarters. It's not a penalty. It's a stark requirement. Per Harold, she's not chastened or apologetic. She's resentful. She's crafting a fresh tale for a new group of former schoolmates. In this rendition, she was the sufferer of a domineering, sentimentally distant betrothed, me, who savagely expelled her. And then she was exploited by a fraudster, Zachary. Some folks are accepting it. I've had to restrict a few of her remote kin on online networks who forwarded me irate notes. A week following my email dispatch, I got a document from a certifier. It was the endorsed pact to free the site initial payment. She selected choice A. She realized she would fail in legal proceedings. So I succeeded. But it doesn't seem like a pure triumph. I forfeited a lady I cherished for 6 years. I'm short over $4,000. I have reliability problems that will require extensive time to resolve. The condo doesn't appear vacant any longer. It simply appears peaceful. I've begun redesigning, but it's a gradual effort. Some days I sense liberated and unburdened. Other days I sense an ancient shadow of resentment and sorrow. It wasn't a tidy narrative with an ideal conclusion. It was a disordered, agonizing, and costly teaching. At times, when individuals reveal their true nature, you must be prepared to bundle it all and dispatch it off, even if it demands a portion of your own essence. Thanks for tracking the story. It's time for me to sign out and commence a fresh phase.